Yeah, I mean, what is the one thing we talk about Vici when it comes to Asian CS? They can't beat Tai Lu,
They could
but
beat
they can
everyone
beat
else.
everyone else convincingly. That's the word, right? They can beat everyone else convincingly. Right now, fine. They started off with a 2-0 win over Brent. Good job. They beat Lucid Dream. Good job. Two teams are right now at the bottom of the table, mind you. Faced up against Tyloo, we're like, oh yeah, boy, let's fucking go. There's gonna be a spicy affair. No, Tyloo just took a dump right all over them. 16-7, 16-7 back to back in two maps. Okay. Tyloo beating them, expected. Maybe not this brutally though. This was the most brutal beatdown I've seen from Tyloo in the past 5 or 6 series they've played. Then it faced up against Invictus. They beat Invictus, but what was the scoreline, right? Like that, for example,
Double
that
OT or
Mirage
something.
game.
Yeah.
No, it actually the two maps they beat Invictus on were very convincing. And one map, I think on Mirage, they had a pretty substantial lead, and they just shat the bed for the second half. And I'm like, okay, fine. Invictus third best team in Asia, they still look pretty good showing. The win against Divine Vendetta was miserable to watch, and then they lost to Tiger. So the loss against Divine Vendetta, what hits me there was no one really stepped up. Kaze was having a very rough game. That we keep talking about Kaze and Jamyang being consistent at a decently good level as a win condition for Vici. And the Kazi doesn't show up, it suddenly it's exposed. The team lies very exposed. Jam Young, he can do what he can. Now you're relying on Advent to frag. You're relying on Almond to go above and beyond, who we know is not consistent at all. And then we have Zoking, whose role, the way his role is defined, is you can't expect too many big games from him. He is that sort of player, right? He's the entry guy. He's going to go on in. He's going to be the sacrificial player for his team. So you can't expect him to drop 30 bombs or like even 20 kills consistently. So Kazi not showing up, that's a problem. The game against Tiger yesterday, I think it was the final two maps. They got 16-7 back to back by Tiger, and in which one of the maps Kaze had his worst map ever in the past 5 years. The previous time he had a game worse, and that was when he was playing for MVP Carnal against a Tyloo in 2015, when the HLTV rating was like the first one, right? I mean, I don't want to put the blame on Kaze, but suddenly now you start to question. You're like, wait, if Kaze has a bad day, and he's human. He's been carrying his team for a long, long time with Freeman and now with Jam Young. Then what does the team have? It just fell apart. That was what was scary for me. It wasn't about them having a close series and losing out in overtime. Tiger, great team. I mean, they're really, really solid. But against Divine Vendetta, I don't want to put the blame on the ping. They were getting outplayed in some of those rounds. So many close matchups going to overtime. It shouldn't be happening. Maps where you look at Vici, like, yeah, they're easily probably the best team in Nuke. They didn't look like that to me. So if Kazi doesn't show up in an important game, or if Jam Young just shits the bed on one day, what do? That's where it starts to fear, man. And we keep talking about a new blood being added, maybe someone like a flying replacing Almond, and we keep hypothesizing about it. But at one point, it needs to happen because the flaws are very evident. They don't have the star power, the firepower to back up the brains of Advent, because you might have all the brains in the world, but if you're not going to hit heads, it's going to fall apart.